Well, it has naturally evolved over time. I would say due to a combination of frustration and seeing clients and insights along the way. Um, I remember there's one particular week. Well, let me backtrack a little bit to the very first client case story I have in my book, Provocative Hypnosis. And it's this very difficult client who would not respond to anything in the office, like the typical NLP hypnosis stuff. He couldn't access the feelings voluntarily. He was there for fear of heights, but whenever I had him talk about heights or imagine being in a height or remember a time he was scared, nothing would happen. So I had him bring his climbing shoes for the next session, and we had one of those telephone poles because he was a telephone technician and he had to work up in the heights, and it was kind of a bad job for him to have. It was kind of torture. So I had him bring his shoes, and I had this devil's pact with him that he had to do whatever I asked him to do, as long as it wasn't immoral, unethical, or fattening. But once he started walking towards the telephone pole, I could see his state shift. And right before he started climbing up the pole, I said to him, "You look kind of scared." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "On a scale from 0 to 10, where are you at?" And I can't quite remember the exact number, but I think it was like a 4 or something like that, 4 or 5. And then he climbed and he was courageous. He still did it, but he was like at the top and he was like at a 10 or something. And then I said, "You can come down now." And after like, half a meter or a meter or something, I stopped him. And this was still quite far up. And I asked him, "Where are you now?" He said, "Oh, it's pretty much gone like at a zero, like at a 1, because I know that I'm going down." And once he came down to the ground, once he landed, I grabbed him just to get his attention. I looked at him intently and I said, "Dude, you were a 5 standing on the ground thinking. And you were a 1 up there because you had a different thought. How on earth could it be the height?" And he just had this epiphany of going from kind of realizing that it wasn't the situation itself, the whole thing was a thought. So that was one of the early cases because I didn't really have to do anything more after that. It was just him having this insight. And I remember there's one week I had many, many years ago, 2 school teachers, same week, for fear of public speaking. And this is many, many years ago. I was still in that kind of NLP purist phase, but the guy comes in and he had seen another NLPer, and the NLPer had helped him. And the NLPer had essentially done like a content intervention, the typical old Steve Andreas thing where or Richard Bandler, where he would kind of imagine an audience looking at him with staring, unblinking eyes, and he'd get terrified. And by kind of pushing it away and changing the image to a nice audience on his own level, looking at him with friendly eyes, he felt better. I was like, "That's great, but why are you here?" And he said, "Well, I am terrified that the old image is going to come back." And that was, of course, just an innocent statement on his part, but I immediately kind of tried out the image myself, and I burst out laughing. And I just had this, it's an image. It's like, why would we have to change it or do anything about it to begin with? Like, if you truly connect with the fact that it's an image. And then in the same week, I had this other guy come in, also for a fear of public speaking, and he said, "Do you know what, Jürgen, I'd really like?" And I said, "No, what is it?" "I'd like this thunderous voice in my mind to just scream out and to say, 'You're enough. You're worthy.'" And I looked at him and I said, "Is that what you want?" He said, "Yeah. that's really what I want. And I just kind of had this epiphany once again because I'm okay doing public speaking. I don't have any fear around it, and I didn't at the time either. And I kind of tried it out in my own mind, and I just started belly laughing because it kind of dawned on me that if I had been on some sort of stage and some voice suddenly emerged and screamed from the top of its lung, "You're you're worthy. You're." I would have gone like what the hell? Like what on earth is this? I just had this little epiphany into like, why would you have to change the content or the structure of the experience when the thought itself is completely benign as long as you see it as that. So it was a bunch of these kind of insights and epiphanies over time, as well as influences from other kind of teachers and some spiritual teachers and stuff like that. And it kind of dawned on me that if I could help people have the realization that the guy on the telephone pole did without having to revert to such drastic measures, then that would probably be a good thing. So that's kind of what we do in this psychological illusion model, is not try to so much change what people think or meddle with how they think, but just help them have a embodied insight or realization into the illusory nature of thinking and experience itself.